Welcome, Emma. Lovely
Thank you,
to see you. Perhaps just for the benefit of people who aren't fully aware of you, perhaps just give us a minute of a little bit of your background.
Sure, thank you, Martin. Well, I live in the electorate. I grew up in Auckland and I'm in an apartment with my fiance Chris. I'm 30 years old and a young professional that returned to New Zealand in 2017 after doing my OE in Sydney.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got 9 years of commercial experience, including most recently as a senior manager at ANZ's wealth management business.
Okay.
Previous to that, I was obviously working in Sydney, worked in infrastructure and representing technology companies over there.
My first question, given the loss of jobs, particularly our friends in the hospitality sector, how are you going to help them create jobs in Auckland Central?
Thank you. Well, when I was first elected, I picked up the phone during that second lockdown and called around 1,000 households. Many of them were very concerned about their jobs, and if it wasn't their job, it was their kids and their grandkids. This has to be the number one issue facing Auckland Central and in fact the country at the moment. We need a government that knows how to create jobs and that will back business because they're the ones that take on the risk to invest and employ people. My opponents, and in particular Helen White, like to talk about raising incomes. That's all well and good, but for the people, the hundreds of thousands of people who are on the unemployment benefit, that does nothing. We need to be solely focused on helping grow the economy. We've got policies including Job Start, so providing businesses who take on a new employee $10,000 to help them. For entrepreneurial people who have lost their jobs, we're helping them by giving them some free business advice, tax advice, and letting them draw out some money from their KiwiSaver account to start their own business.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And here in Auckland Central, we talk about hospitality. I've been advocating to the government to help save the ASB Classic, which is an iconic tennis tournament. It happens every year.
Every January.
That's right. They're still waiting to hear from the government when they can go ahead. With some of the biggest names of tennis want to come to New Zealand. You know what? That spends $20 million in Auckland's economy. That goes directly to our hospitality industry.
Wow.
So they need that support and they need that event to go ahead.
What are your plans for Auckland's infrastructure and transport?
Thanks, Martin. Well, you've seen the chaos on the streets. I mean, College Hill has been backed up almost every night recently because of the bridge.
The bridge,
The bridge. So we've said we will spend $31 billion on improving the Upper North Island's infrastructure. So for Auckland, that includes prioritising another harbour crossing, which we're looking at a tunnel with rail. We'll also be spending more money on more ferries, more buses and more trains. And for the people of Auckland Central, ferries of course are very important. They are a lifeline to Waiheke. So we're spending $300 million for better infrastructure around the Gulf. That'll make a world of difference for them and how ferries growing over time.
Well, when you lived in Sydney, you would have been used to the ferries to Circular Quay.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And also the fact that they do have that tunnel. That's another redundancy, another option for people to get around.
How are you? I know you've partly answered this, but how are you planning to support SMEs during this economic recession?
Yes, they're having an incredible tough time. And what I would say to them is that the Labour Greens policies will add an extra $2 billion of costs per year. That is absolutely the wrong thing to do in a recession. Their ideas are fanciful in a great time. It's worth considering in a booming economy, but we need to be backing them to employ people and to stay afloat. So our policies are to reduce regulation, to lower taxes and help them employ people, because at the end of the day, when they are doing well in Auckland, our whole economy is booming and more people will have opportunities.
What should the incoming government do about taxation?
Yes, well, we've been very clear on our tax plans. We will not introduce any new taxes. In fact, we will repeal the regional fuel tax, saving Auckland Central and the people of Auckland $150 million a year. We're also giving tax relief So for the average worker, that's your teachers, that's your nurses, they'll have around $3,000 more in their pocket. Because we believe, Martin, that we can spend, people can spend money better than the government can. That's unlike Labour and the Greens, who believe their biggest policy is actually to tax people out of a recession, which is just not the way to grow an economy. The Greens also have a very destructive plan when it comes to a wealth tax. That will affect tens of thousands of Auckland Central households. Not only does it affect your house, but it affects your KiwiSaver account, your art, your car. It's incredibly intrusive and very unpopular from the voters I've spoken to.
Do you think New Zealand has an inequality problem?
Yes, I think that we do have an issue with children and families needing more support. However, what we've seen from the Labour government is actually child poverty has got worse. They promised by 2020 that they'd bring 100,000 kids out of poverty, right? So we're now, even pre-COVID, there are an extra 4,000 children in poverty. I'm really proud that under the national government and under our social investment approach, which is the whole idea of investing early and helping to solve issues before they come about, investing in education and health, we brought 50,000 kids and families out of poverty.
Glyphosate, commonly found in Roundup, has been declared a carcinogen by the WHO scientists. Would you call for it to be banned on our berms, parks and reserves in Auckland Central?
Martin, I think the council has to do a much better job at engaging with the community, particularly on issues like this, because what I hear from people is they want the council to be a lot more accountable and to be much more engaged in these local issues. Ultimately, this issue comes back to the EPA. They determine what is safe. But certainly if there are issues, the council needs to be talking directly to the people.
Who other than returning New Zealanders should we let into New Zealand in the next, say, 6 months?
Well, having a strong border is absolutely critical to our economic recovery. We've proposed a border agency that will bring together all aspects of government to look at how we can strengthen New Zealand's approach. And that means things like, Martin, testing at the border when you say you will, which the government failed to do and brought us into that very destructive second lockdown, right? So we've said that New Zealanders should, coming home, should have a test before they get on the plane. They'll be able to book into a quarantine facility. And frankly, we don't have all the information that the government has. So in terms of timeframes, it's a bit harder for me to say what's going to happen in the next 6 months. But we are going to progress skilled migrants, people who are needed, for instance, in our horticulture industry, which are critical workers, particularly over those summer periods, and then also bringing people in from low COVID countries, and also look at longer stay tourists, and critical for Auckland Central, it's our international students. You only have to go up to Queen Street and the surrounding area to see the impact that the lack of those students are having on that local economy. We believe that once we have a safe border, we can do it safely and bring these people back to New Zealand.
If you had just one policy you could introduce in the first year, what do you think it would be?
Well, Auckland Central is a particularly young electorate. We've got the highest number of millennials, so people aged between about 20 and 40 than anywhere else in the country. Many of them are like me, I've just turned 30, looking at potentially starting a family. So I think our first 1,000 days policy is incredibly exciting, particularly for young families. So what this policy does is recognises that the first 1,000 days of a child's life is critically important. We'll ensure that women can stay for 3 nights in hospital, and that families get up to $6,000 of support for their new family. So that's things like if you need a lactation consultant, or you're having problems with sleep, or you've actually got a child already that you want to put into daycare in order to bond with a new baby. will allow you to do that. So it's incredibly flexible. It's
Yeah.
focused around what the mother, the baby and the family needs. And depending on your situation, you can get up to $6,000. So we're really focusing there on people who are in more vulnerable situations as well. We're also making parental leave more flexible, so dads can take it at the same time as mums. So
Good idea.
I think this is a fantastic policy that I'd love
Yeah.
to see introduced.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think the incoming government should appoint a Minister for Animals?
Well, Martin, we've already got essentially a minister who looks after animals
Yeah.
under the Ministry for Primary Industries. So they look after what's called the Animal Welfare Act.
Yeah.
That has, under the last government, national government, was strengthened. So we introduced something like 46 new regulations to make sure that the law and the department have the ability to prosecute people, because there are terrible cases of people being cruel to animals. They've now got the tools in order to deal with that more effectively.
Great. Should we ban live animal exports, yes or no?
Well, what we've seen from the recent case was incredibly distressing. It's the onus is on the officials to look at the health and safety aspects of that. There is a review currently underway. They've had something like 3,500 submissions. It's up to the officials to look at that and look at what needs to be improved.
Yeah, thank you. Will you vote yes or no to the cannabis legislation and control bill?
Unlike some other politicians, I'm going to tell you what my answer is. I'll be voting no. I'm worried that it will lead to increased use and increased harm. I'm worried about the mental health impacts. And one of the reasons I'm getting into politics, Martin, is to try and decrease our terrible rates of domestic and family violence in this country. And there is a link. That's why I'm voting no.
Okay. Will you vote yes or no to the end of life bill?
All these issues are incredibly personal. Everyone has a say.
It's true.
Everyone has a say, and everyone actually, my opinion is no more weighted than someone else's, but
Yeah.
I will be voting yes to this legislation.
Okay.
I lost my mum, who was very sick when I was 16 years old.
Sorry to hear that.
And that really shaped my view on this issue, so I'll be voting yes.
Thank you. Look, my last question, would you increase the superannuation age from 65? Yes or no?
We've given clarity to New Zealanders that we won't be doing that until 2036.
Oh, goodness.
So that
We'll be
gives
dead by then.
that gives a bit of time for people to get used to that concept and to be actively saving and transitioning to
Yeah.
that point of view. And the importance of this actually comes down to the sustainability of our universal superannuation.
Yeah, of course.
As the age of as your life expectancy increases, we have to look at this policy. So we've said that, and we've got plenty of time for people to get used to the idea.
Yeah. Emma, I'm finished. Is there anything else you would like to tell us?
Well, I'd just like to say it's been a real privilege to come after Nikki Kaye, who's been a fantastic MP for Auckland Central.
I agree.
I'm working incredibly hard on the campaign. I've called thousands of households. I visited hundreds of businesses and community groups. I love this community. I'm part of it. It would be such a privilege to represent Auckland Central in Parliament. I'll be working hard for you. And if you want to see a national MP in this seat, you need to vote for me and give your party vote to National.
Okay. Thank you very much, Emma Mellow. Good luck on the 17th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.